Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Procrastinator's Pit Stop. I am sitting here with another amazing guest for you today, Michael J. Dorfman, a New York City native who has lived in Mexico for 45 years, is the 83-year-old author of The Thriving Vegan, sharing his vibrant plant-based lifestyle and exposing industry misinformation to inspire others toward healthy longevity. Michael, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Chris. Glad to be here. It's going to be very interesting, I'm sure.
Yeah, we do have a lot of interesting ground to cover for sure. Before we do that, we do like to have an icebreaker on the show. And the question for you today is, which fictional character do you resonate the most with?
Yeah, you asked. Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I just came up with my gut feeling or my gut reaction, which was Forrest Gump. And I was thinking, why is that? And I think it's because of he was such a beautiful character. He was very simple, coming from the heart, and didn't think too much about things, but just being human, just a very natural person who expressed exactly what he was feeling. And I just fell in love with that guy. I've seen that movie like three times. That's the one that came up.
I love that. Love Forrest Gump, especially the scene where he pants the I don't know, some important person because he wanted to show his bullet wound. I think that was the most memorable part. And they're like, "What are you doing?" I think that was the most memorable part for me. But I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and he never really cared too much about what people thought about him. He was just being him.
Definitely, I love that choice. Just sliding easy into it, Michael. How would you define procrastination, and what does it mean to you personally?
Procrastination, I just remember, is just putting off tomorrow for tomorrow what you can do today, which is the simple explanation. And I go through that as well, even at my age. Even though I try to remember, and I remember often that there isn't that much time left for me, and that it isn't a good time to put things off. So I really am careful in choosing, what I want to put off. If I well, this is not. I try to remember and put my effort and focus on what's really important today, and because I want to enjoy every day, because I'm always remembering that, if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, you think most people think they're going to live forever, and they're not worried too much about their health, or they're just working, or they have their relationships, their family. And now it's sort of like, life is moving so fast. I mean, even, at your age, I don't know what your age is, and it keeps moving faster as you get older, but it's like Zoom. Every day is like Friday or something like that. And even though today's Wednesday, 2 days is going to be Friday. So it's just constantly remembering and really realizing that it's now. I got to focus on now. We live in the now. We don't live in the future. We don't live in the past, even though when we're thinking all the time, we're thinking about what are we going to do? What's going to happen a little bit later today? What's going to happen tomorrow or the next day? Well, we think about the past, and we're still stuck in the past and things that bother us from the past. And to me, it's like the only place we're living is in the now. No matter how much we focus I remember this example. No matter how much we focus on the future, tomorrow, when tomorrow comes, it comes as today, because you have your 11:59 and 59 seconds. It's the future, and all of a sudden, boom! It's today. So so I'm trying to really focus on today, and that's really helps me put my emphasis and put my mission in seeing what's important today, what can I do today, and tomorrow will take care of itself as today, whenever that comes. So I see that procrastination.
Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. I do have a follow-up question for that then.
Yeah.
So when you do find yourself procrastinating, you think about the importance of things. Are there any other tips or tricks that you use, your secret sauce to overcome it when it stares you down in the face?
Well, if I have a list, because I'm doing so many things. I'm writing my book. I'm doing the podcast. I'm coming up. I'm now a nutrition health coach. So I'm getting ready for a webinar, and I'm trying to prepare. So I do it. And then, so it's sort of like I write a list because I like to organize myself. And then if something comes up, it's like, Hey, I wasn't thinking about that. Or somebody asked me to do something, or all of a sudden the situation with my car or whatever it is comes in there. It's like, what am I going to do with that? Because I already have, planned most of what I wanted to do today, and now I have to think about that. So I sort of think about it, and I try to put it in perspective of it. How important is that? I usually I make my own chocolate. So, and I haven't made the chocolate for like 2, 3 days. And my wife was saying, what about the chocolate? And it's like, am I going to do, that was yesterday. Am I going to do the chocolate yesterday? No, I got to do this. Okay. It's tomorrow is the chocolate. So today is the chocolate, I suppose, unless something else happened. So I'm sort of trying to, put things in perspective as far as their importance. And, whether you could say it's procrastinating or not, but when your day is full and you really, have a list of what's really important, because that's what my purpose is, to really share what I've learned and my research and my experience. That's number one. And the other things that happen have to be, I have to put them in the proper place. But I guess that's what I was going to say.
I like that. I like the lists. I like to-do lists. I'm curious because you
Yeah.
mentioned prioritization and putting, things in perspective. Have you heard about or do you use a to-be list to sort of filter your to-do list?
I guess that's what's here on the tray. All this stuff, these papers I have here in the tray are things that are coming up, but they're not really. I used to have it. Maybe I should do it again. I have a tray like it has two levels. Maybe I should put the A1 on the top, which I used to do, and the B on the bottom. I haven't been doing that, but that's an interesting suggestion that I used to do when I was working for a company. But yeah, so I have it all. I have is I have a calendar, a big calendar on my desk, and then I have a pad, which is what do I do now, today, and then the calendar is what I do tomorrow, and then the other things on the tray is what's going to be coming up a little bit later, maybe. Yeah, so I just need to be organized. That's why I get a little bit stressed out there.
I understand that for sure, but you know, you are an accomplished author, you've lived a full life, you make your own chocolate. I mean, that right there is enough. I might be coming down to see you for that. I'd be banging on your door like 3 in the morning. Hey, Michael, I need the stuff.
What
The
about is
chocolate.
it?
I mean, the chocolate.
It's dark chocolate. You okay with that?
Oh yeah, I love dark chocolate because we can get into this in a second, but that's an interesting tangent.
Yeah.
I'm not up in the milk chocolate that's 98% sugar, right?
Okay. Right.
Refined sugar. My bad.
We
98%
think the
refined.
same. Yeah.
Before we get into that, I did want to ask you, and my audience is already rolling their eyes because this happens every single time there's an author on the show. I always ask that sort of beating a dead horse with a whip question. They say that writing is 98% procrastination and 2% actually doing it. How true is that for you?
Well, I'd like to tell sort of my story with that, with the writing. I used to write when I was in my 20s. I used to do poetry. I really liked writing. It was at that time I was writing about we're talking about Vietnam. We're talking about those times during the 60s. I really had a lot to write about, and I had feelings about that because I was an activist. So I used to write about it. And then that ended, and then I started having the rest of my life, which was I was working, I had a family, I have two, well, they're grown boys now, grown men. And I wasn't writing anymore. I was just doing other things because a different era of my life it was in play. And I kept trying to write, and I would write something, but it wasn't me. It was like, where has that writer gone that was inside of me that I was expressing? So it's an interesting question. I don't know if it's procrastinating or how I could see it, but what happened to me is that I started becoming interested in health and finding out and doing research, and my experience I was doing, not, I wasn't doing podcast. We're talking about it in the 2015 up to 29. I wrote my book in 2019. And during that time, I started getting inspired. And when I got inspired, I started writing a little bit, and I realized the reason I wasn't writing during that whole period was I had nothing to write about that I wasn't enthusiastic about, that I wasn't inspired by, and that was my problem. The writing was still there, but it was inside, and I rediscovered it. And I rediscovered it, and I became, I think, a better writer than I was when I was in my 20s because of my experience, because of my, I was older and I knew more. I look back at the way I was when I was in my 20s, and I was, I look back, who is that guy? And, and he wrote well. I still have it. I have pages and pages of my writing when I was in my 20s. I saved it. So it turned yellow on the pages, but I still have it. But that's the good to me. And right now, uh, uh, I don't. I don't have much, problem writing now. Write about, I publish my weekly articles. Beside writing my book, my new book, which is on longevity, which I'm really into because of my age also. So I write about it's the longevity way. I believe that's what it's going to be called. So I write about that, and I also publish my weekly articles on Substack. And I'm trying now. I'm getting into videos, short videos, and when the podcasts come out, I put up my my podcasts up there. So I'm not having much of a problem writing. Although now that I'm thinking about it, I do have. I'm not sure exactly sometimes what I want to write about, and then I'll just trust. I'll trust that because I want to put an article out every single week. Then I'm getting so now I want to put this article out by on Friday, day after tomorrow. And the idea came up. I said, "Where's the idea? What am I going to write about?" There's so many things to write about, in my topic. And then finally, I decide that what, I'm just going to start. I do little by little. So first, I want to start, so I write the title. This I like as the title. So that's what I put down. I put down the title, and then so the title is going to be on wellness. And I say, okay, that sounds like a great topic. Wellness is not the same as health, it's much broader than health. So I put down, okay, that. And then later that yesterday afternoon, I put down, okay, I'm putting down the definition of wellness. And that's going to start me. So now I'm going to get into this whole thing about, why about wellness being more holistic, more encompassing than just health. Because when people think of health, they think about physical health usually. So this is wellness, which is a much broader topic. So I think when you talk about the procrastination, I fight that by doing little by little. And even though I'm not sure of what I'm going to be writing about, I write a little bit every day, at least until I get close to the end when I have to publish it, or if it ends up I have to publish it a day or two later, that's okay too. So that's what I do. I just do little by little, and then I broaden the topic. And sometimes when I write, the other thing I do is I put a lot of information. This is exactly the opposite. I'll say I'm writing about this topic, and then I'll find out, okay, I'm going to put a lot of stuff in there. It's too long, but then I just take it like maybe people do like David, what Michelangelo did with David, the sculpture. He has the big block there, and he just takes away what's not important. So maybe that I think that's what I do. I no, this doesn't go with this. Maybe this will be for the next topic or something like that. So I don't know if that has to do with the what you're talking about with the procrastination.
It can, a little bit in some senses, creative procrastination, the mind is still working on other things, like, an internet browser with something left open, still loading. So, that can be one form of creative, procrastination. And thank you so much for sharing that. It's great to know how, the writing process from all these different authors and loved hearing your process. Now I'd like to dive into sort of the more nitty-gritty stuff, and I love the fact that you are a nutrition and health coach and that you wrote this book, The Thriving Vegan, because and I'm gonna get a lot of hate on this, I'm sure, because I have in the past. But hear me out. The thing that the link, the relation between your health, what you eat, and procrastination is huge. And I mean huge. I mean, it's gotten to the point where if somebody comes to me for procrastination, I'm pretty much always asking about their energy levels and then looking at their diet first.
Okay. So what was the question?
No, but the question is,
Yeah.
when you look at that, when you do a deep dive into that, what are the principles for maintaining energy, and what's the most detrimental food maybe to our well-being that we may not even realize?
Yeah, and I think this is the big controversial topic because I've been plant-based for the last, well, a little bit, I'm close to 17 years. I used to be, when I grew up, I was a football player. I played the line, believe it or not, in high school, and even had 4 scholarships for universities playing the line. But I'm not into that right now. Anyway, I gave that up and I became interested in health I gave up meat in 1970. I became a vegetarian. I didn't give up dairy because I couldn't do that. It was too hard for me. I was stuck on the pizzas, and a lot of people find it very hard giving up dairy, even more than. So I finally, I went through decades as a vegetarian. I was still getting sick, not too serious, but every year I would get once or twice, I get sore throats or fever or congestion, and finally, my brother helped me out because he was plant based at that time uh, for many years, and I decided, I read a couple of books, and I decided to give it a try, plant based, and when I did, I gave up animal products. I haven't been had that problem anymore. For me, see, it's so interesting. I see there's a tendency to uh, to push meat, and there's always been a tendency to push meat. Ever since when I grew up, it was the basic seven. It was meat, dairy, was the basics, of nutrition with the kids we grew up, and then it changed. It just changed a little bit, but it's still that way. It was like we've always in the West, mostly, we're very dependent on our meat and our on our animal products. So that's been going on. But now that I'm in longevity, and here I am, 83, and I'm doing very well. I don't know, I play pickleball 4 or 5 times a week, playing against 30, 40, 50-year olds. And I don't even look at the difference in age. I'm just playing against somebody. And then they say, hey, don't worry about it. You're 83 and this guy is 40. What do you expect? He moves faster than you. So I have this, mentally, just all around. That's why I call about wellness. Uh, so I'm into the thing of in bringing people. I'm doing this course. Well, it's not finished yet. Bringing people to later life, because what happens in the West, you grow up and eventually you retire, and a lot of people who retire, they retire and they just don't do anything anymore. And they just sit around and they figure, well, I'm finally able to do what always wanted to do. I don't have to listen to a boss anymore. And now I'll just hang around or I'll do my own thing. And to me, that's sort of a dangerous thing to do because for me, I think the older you get, the more active you need to get. And that's what's missing because we're told in the West, they have the concept, oh, you're over the hill. What are you going to, you're in your 70s, you already got sick, just wait it out, and for the rest of your life. And I'm against that. And I see that, there's a whole new world waiting for us in longevity. And if you look at the healthiest and longest living people on the planet are the ones that are found in the blue zones and also in the rural areas of Japan, China, parts of Africa. And these people basically, I'm not saying they don't eat meat or animal products at all, but most of their food is plant based, including the blue zones where, maybe 85, 90%, and they eat fish once in a while, like in Okinawa and other places, they eat meat. And okay, but there's certain critical things that are extremely important that you only get from plants. And there is no way about it. Even proteins, it's always the question, people have well, where do you get your protein from? Protein initially comes from plants. The cows eat the plants, the animals eat the cows or whatever, and we eat the cows to get the protein. Now I don't know if the Game Changers, I don't know if you heard of that. It's the documentary on Netflix. And that pretty much explains it. There's so many elite athletes that are plant based. And so, that to me is so that's what I want to do. And the if people want to really, and the one thing I wanted to mention is that we're still based on an animal. We eat animal, we eat animal products, and we think that the big problem now is ultra processed foods, and ultra processed foods is a big problem, but it isn't the only problem. So and the other problems is that we have to eat more plants. There's no way about it because that's where, the carbohydrates are. That's where the antioxidants are. That's where the fiber is. It's like, and if you don't want to do that, and now, and also what is it, phytonutrients, which we get from we need that if we want to really live long. And if we don't do that, we're going to be hovering around 75 years, the life expectancy, 78 years. Now it's even going back. We're losing a year or two. So if you want to live to like in the blue zones and the help with the longest living people live, free of most of the chronic diseases that we suffer from, then you got to think about, changing adding more plants to your nutrition and among other things, which is the lifestyle changes. So I think there's no way around it, and I think that's what if the people really want to live longer and healthier and be vibrant and really be able to give back, that's what I feel also for me is giving back to society, what I've learned, what I've experienced, and is to help people, take people on the same journey I'm on so they can live longer and feel well and they don't have to give in to the chronic diseases that a lot of people think is a natural part of aging. Okay, you got a chronic disease. Well, most people do by this time. So anyway, I just wanted to mention it.
No, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. As you were speaking there, I thought of a little analogy, and you can correct me here if maybe I'm wrong. I think about because I've gone plant based as well. I've seen Game Changers, I've seen Cowspiracy, I've seen Buy Now, I've seen the tobacco ones. So yes, the cows get protein from the grass. So I equate it to you go to the gas pump, right? You've got your 93 high octane, you've got your 92, you got your 91, you got your 90, right? Your basic unleaded. So when we're eating meat, we're basically putting unleaded into our system, and if we're eating plants, we're putting the high octane in there. Is that sort of the way to think about it?
I think in a sense that it's the right way to see it. Uh, I think that one of the big problems with meat is I don't know if it's even worse than just putting leaded gasoline in there. Meat, well, maybe it's the same because you can eat meat, but there are a lot of young people who eat. There are people who just eat meat. Netflix documentary. What is it called? The liver guy. It's just put on Netflix. The guy's living. He lived on raw meat, eating raw meat. But if you're, the problem is if you're young and you're eating mostly meat and, whether you're on a paleo diet, the keto diet, or what's his name, the South Beach diet, whatever they're all basically the same source. It's based on animal products, and you can have some, vegetables, some fruits. But if you meat has, especially if you have the meat that's grown on the factory farms, you got the hormones in the meat, you got the pesticides, you got the antibiotics. Most of the antibiotics are given to the animals on the factory farms, even more than human beings. So they're doing it so they don't get infected. So it's you got that, and they're not eating plants. Cows are supposed to be eating plants, and they're eating corn and they're eating soy, genetically modified. So I think it's worse than that. And I think people have to pay attention to that. And I go to the gym 3 times a week, and I just see these guys. Everybody's into muscles, even Robert Kennedy Jr. is into muscles, and I think people are into that, and they just think this outer thing of having this strong. And I see it's like having muscles doesn't mean that you're healthy. It means that you have muscles and you could be you're strong, but it doesn't mean that your overall health is really that good. So I think people have to get. If you look at the healthiest people, you look at the people. They don't have bodies like that in the healthy areas of the world. They're just thin mostly, and they just don't have these. It's not what it's all about. I think. So I think it's more. It's we got besides the processed foods, we have to really think about, it's not even meat, it's the dairy also and high fat because, for example, the keto diet and most of the, the ones that are based on meat are high fat, well, high protein, and that's dangerous because, I understand with the keto, you can go into ketosis and I do intermittent fasting once in a while. You get into ketosis, but it's not supposed to be permanent. Ketosis is when you don't have enough food. That's the way it was with paleo man. They were in ketosis a lot when they used to go and on their hunting gathering thing because they hadn't eaten in a while. So it goes then they burn their fat. But as soon as you start eating again, you're back on the carbohydrates because that's what the body wants. So I think that, people, we need to do research. We really need to find out because there's so much, most of the media is pushing who's behind the curtain, pushing it, whether it's agricultural, the industry or the dairy industry or the drug industry. We got to be smart, and really listen to what's being said and do research. That's what I think.
I don't even think it's a case of research in some cases. And again, I understand because, I come from a place where I grew up on milk. I grew up on, meat and potatoes, right? But I mean, when you look at it and you think about it, it should be common sense. And this was actually pointed out in Cowspiracy and pointed out in, I think, in Game Changers as well. Milk is designed naturally to create or to sustain a 400-pound calf. So what's it doing to us when we
Yeah, absolutely. And we're the human beings are the only animals that drink the milk of another animal. And we're also the only animals that are not weaned off of milk. So we keep doing it, whether it's cheese or anything like that. So it's like, that's something to think about, like you're saying. It's like, and I don't know if there's another thing. I don't know if you know that milk has, it's called casomorphine. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
rings a bell, but
Okay,
let's
casomorphine is a compound in milk. All mammals have this in this milk because casomorphine it's in the milk, and people think that a baby goes into the breast, gets the milk. It's like because of the love and the whole thing, but it's this drug that's in the milk that brings back the baby to the breast. So, and you could look it up. It's popular. I mean, you just go to Google or AI or wherever you can. Casomorphine is in the milk. So when we drinking the milk or eating the cheese or anything, we're getting some of that stuff. Beside the hormones, like you're saying, it's like the hormones are meant for a cow. The hormones of a mother is meant for the child. So, but if we don't question that, maybe somebody's going to question it.
I mean, it's but again, we're brainwashed from birth, and like you said, the food pyramids and a lot of these studies have been funded by conflicts of interest groups, right? So, what do you do with that?
Yeah, well, I guess you have to listen to your podcasts, and the alternative media is there. I was just thinking, most time when I do my podcast, and it ends up I come up with the names of certain doctors, Dr. Michael Greger or Dr. Dr. Campbell, T. Colin Campbell, the China study. They don't have, nobody hears of it. I said, isn't it amazing that these are the people who are, I'm believing, they do their tours and they've written so many books, well-known books, but there's no money behind it. There's no push. The media is not, you know, is not pushing that. There's sort of, you have to find that, and the media just is where that's where the money is. And I think that the bottom line for and the media, the CEOs will admit it. It's we're looking at we don't care if people don't believe what we're saying. We just care that people are confused. That when they hear the pros and the cons, they'll say, "Well, who knows who's telling the truth? So why change?" So and that's what it is. It's like doesn't matter. They can keep publishing things that this is great, that's great, this is not good, that's not good. But as long as people are not clear and they're confused, they just won't make the change, and that's what they're basing their sales on. That people won't change.
Not only that, I don't really want to pick on any major food chains here. McDonald's, they coupled their meat byproducts with refined sugar for their kids' Happy Meals to get them hooked on. So it's almost like the cards are stacked against you
It is.
right from birth because they make these foods cheap and freely available. And I don't know about Mexico personally. I've been in Central America, but not Mexico.
Yeah,
But pretty much anywhere in the world, an organic plant-based diet is difficult to do because, changing seasons. But also, as soon as you slap organic on it, like there's a cost increase, right?
that's true.
And a lot of times it's not warranted. I mean, yes, you get less crops or whatever, or you have to do certain things, but we're talking in some cases a regular avocado, you know, regular avocado. I'll give you an example from here in my local market. A regular avocado was, believe they said about in season is about 89 cents US. Now you go to its organic, you go to its organic counterpart, you're looking at $1.50, $2, maybe even $3.
Yeah, and as long as people are willing to pay that, you know. Well, the same thing here. It's where I live in San Miguel. We're very fortunate because there's a lot of organic options. There's a lot more organic options in Mexico, I think, in general, because there's a lot of local, so you come in, but it's true, you get 50% more. If it's organic. So you have to, yeah, it's tough, so people who can't afford the organic, well, if you're eating the vegetables and the fruits, organic fruits and vegetables, if you can't afford that, then you will be eating the non-organic, which is not that good, but it's better than not eating it. So that's what my son, who lives not too far from me, he has a big family. He can't buy organic. So he buys non-organic. Yeah. So the other thing is we have a garden out here and we grow some fruits and when we grow some vegetables here. So the other thing is growing your own. You can grow your own sprouts. We grow three kinds of sprouts in the house here. So I think that people, if they're able to do that, they could start growing their own food, and whatever you can't get organic, and go for non-organic. Unless whatever you can do with organic, it's fine, and that's the way it is for me. I don't get everything organic, but I would say about 75, 80%. So, but that's a problem, the prices.
The other thing that comes to mind too is the quality, right? Because when nothing else is available, we go to protein powders, right? I mean, these are protein powders that are plant based, but obviously it's better to eat the whole, right? The whole raw foods rather than the cooked, denatured, or the protein powders. Do you feel that there's any detriment to some of those plant-based protein powders because of the additives that they have?
Yeah, well, I'm not a supplement guy anyway. The only supplements I take is B12, which is supposed to take because of the vitamin B that's missing. But everybody should be taking vitamin B12 because even if you are eating meat or your animal products, that the animal wasn't fed on grass because it comes from the ground, the B12. So you're missing that probably too, or as well, the vitamin B. And I'm taking also a vitamin D3 because I think my weak spot is my skin. I got to be careful. It's so intense, the sun here now. It's like Arizona here. It's semi-arid, and I just stay out of the sun because of my skin situation. Because I used to take tons of sun when I was young. So yeah, so I think but as far as supplements, the only supplement I take curcuma and I take amla, which is the Indian gooseberry, which is a super supplement. I try to take natural herb supplement. That's what I'm okay with. But the vitamin and mineral supplements, I don't do that. It's whole food. That's what the body wants. The body has been eating whole food for millions of years, couple of million years, ever since the apes and whole foods. And all of a sudden, they come up with the supplements, and the body doesn't. The body wants whole foods because the body takes a whole food. I mean, if you what do you instead of taking vitamin A, vitamin A capsule. You eat to get the vitamin A from the apple, but it's not only the vitamin A. If you just take the vitamin A, you really don't know what is the body thinking of that vitamin A. Is it going to use all of it? Is it going to the body needs every moment. The body needs what it needs. It changes during the day. So if you eat, let's say you take a vitamin A tablet and then you take it later on in the day, maybe the vitamin A body doesn't need all that vitamin A. When you eat an apple, the body takes the apple and say, okay, I'm going to take a little bit of this. I need this now. This is what the body needs in this very moment. So you get the vitamin A plus all the other vitamins. It's like an orchestra. That's what whole food is. It's an orchestra of nutrition, and that's what the body wants because it takes this for that. That's what you want. But we got stuck on the supplement industry, which is like it's grown to be like the pharmaceutical industry. It's a big industry, multi-billion-dollar industry, keeps growing, and people get hooked on the supplements, and they really believe that this is going to be as good as the food itself, and that's what the danger is.
Such a powerful sentiment, you know. This has been such an interesting conversation, Michael. I mean, I could go on for another 3, 4 hours like this, but
Okay.
I've been advised it's not a good idea to have 4-hour episodes. We are coming up pretty close to the time.
Okay.
Is there anything that you wish I would have asked but didn't ask, or anything you feel we should have covered but didn't cover?
Well, I think that one of the things is like, I'm doing this longevity course, which I'm putting together. I think it's very important for people to realize that, chronic diseases don't just happen when you're in your 70s, because by the time you're in your 70s and you're getting a chronic disease, that's like, I think it's like 70% of the people in their 70s have at least one chronic disease. You don't let it get there. You got to take care of yourself earlier. Like cancer doesn't pop up and all of a sudden you get a mammogram and it's like, oh, they just detected cancer. Yeah, but that cancer's been there, for maybe decades. My father, he was during the war, World War II. He was because he had two kids. He was a painter on the Queen Mary, the ship, and he used to paint in the hull, which had asbestos. At that time nobody knew about asbestos, and he used to paint there. And when it hit him, this was 1942. He was in his early 30s. It hit him when he was 77 years old. 40 years it took for that cancer to get to the point where it's like he has this. So that's what people have to realize. Same thing with heart disease. Type 2 diabetes used to be adult, what is it? It was an adult diabetes. And then they saw that children were getting diabetes, type 2 diabetes. So it just became type 2 diabetes. It was called adult onset diabetes. You didn't get diabetes until you were an adult. That's changing. Everything is changing. We're getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And we have to turn things around. And we have to realize that we start thinking of longevity when we're younger, not when we're older and then we were already sick. So I guess that's it. And also, I'm going to be putting a webinar on. I'm working on it, and people are going to be able to watch the webinar and see if they're interested in taking my course in longevity. So I'll maybe in the future when I have that, I could send it out to you and you could put it up. Whatever is possible. So anyway, I think that's what I wanted to say.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for being on on the show. And to our listeners, don't worry, we are going to put links in the show notes for you. As that course and that webinar becomes available, we'll update those show notes as well. Once again, thank you so much for being
Yeah.
on the show, Michael.
Okay, one other thing I wanted to, as far as the links to my website and my Substack, I'll give that to you later on. Well, you had that.
Correct,
Okay,
correct, and we'll have all that in the show notes for all our
okay.
listeners here.
Thank you.
And then to all our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And just remember, if you can't find that motivation or inspiration for yourself today, maybe just go out and try to be that motivation and inspiration for someone else. And see you again next time.
Okay, thank you.